Anyway, I'll shut up and we'll go on. Ooh, okay. Next one is easily triggered, and then in brackets, trauma related.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
See, again, that's another one that's kind of vague,
Mm-hmm.
but that's definitely leaning toward red flag for me.
Yeah. Okay. My 2 cents on this. I grew up in a house with a very angry or multiple very angry parental figures and stuff. And so they were also easily triggered by the dumbest things. Like I still remember
Yeah.
me sorry. There's a little story for you guys, but just to give you an example of why this bothers me so much. Um me and my siblings were down in the playroom. We got called upstairs. We all came running up, and then we all proceeded to get spanked because none of us turned off the downstairs light.
Mm,
So, yeah, the easily triggered thing
yeah.
is like, and again, like I realize like people have like hurt people. And so these parental figures in my life had grown up in very extremely angry and abusive homes and stuff like that. So this was a step up, but also still like, that's also not okay though. It's not okay to be that easily triggered and stuff. So, um,
Yeah, I feel like the key word here is trauma related because that's what gives it a little more
mhm.
sympathy.
Yeah.
Because you're saying you get triggered based off of bad things that have happened to you,
Yeah.
but easily. So it's like that's in terms of trying to have a relationship with somebody, this is something that needs to be addressed immediately. It's something that needs to be worked out immediately and understood that, like, hey, when these situations occur, you got to know that this is not me doing whatever traumatized you in the past or whatever, like I'm not that person that whatever that happened or whatever. Or else you're gonna have where like you're in a position of potentially walking on pins and needles with that person, and
Mhm.
this one's touchy because it depends on whatever that quote unquote trauma is, right? Like the trauma
Mhm.
could be nonsense, or it could be something extremely serious. And
Yeah.
so I think it depends on what that is and what, like, again, so like, oh, shoot, I don't know, that's kind of dark, but I'm thinking of like the stuff where you have a relationship with somebody and they were like essayed or something before, right?
Mhm.
And now you
Yeah.
try to touch them and you're just touching them because you care about them and it freaks them out or something, right? Like they just can't do that. Like that could be difficult in a relationship depending on the circumstances. But if it's
Mhm.
something more like, I don't know, like see, this wasn't a relationship, but it's making me think of a scenario that I had in college with somebody who was supposed to be, I'm going to be very vague just for the purposes of it, but
Oh,
it was
yeah, that's
someone
fair.
who I was working with was they perceived what I was doing was I was taking their credit for something in a project that we were doing. And they eventually ended up telling me, like, to the point that they said, I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm not going to help you do the project and this and that. You can do it yourself because you want to take all the credit. And I'm like, I was in a position of where there was a lot of stress on me. And
Mhm.
so I was like, why are you doing this to me? And I started just kind of laying into this person over the phone. And they ended up eventually telling me, well, I guess I was just feeling that way because, I had this, like something like my dad used to have this type of a scenario, right? And
Mm.
like where they would try to take credit, and I just was like, okay, but I'm not your dad. And
Mhm.
that's basically like, that was something where it was like, yeah, that was a trauma thing. They were triggered because of things that were not really happening. They perceived were happening. But we were good after that, after we had that conversation.
Oh,
So
good.
but that was something to me where it's like, okay, I get it, but you're being ridiculous because this is not the same situation. So, like,
Yeah.
in terms of if you translate that into like a relationship, that could get really old really, really quickly if like
Mhm.
every
Oh, very
two
much so.
seconds, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
someone
Yep.
is getting, or they're like constantly, like maybe they've been cheated on before or something. So
Yeah.
then every time you talk to somebody else, they're like, oh, so you really like them, huh? And it's like, what is your problem? Like, it's
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where it boils down to a red flag for me. We live in a
yeah,
day and age where victim mentality is very prominent.
yeah,
And it sucks because yeah, there are so many hurt people. There's so many people with trauma. But at the end of the day, everyone else is not responsible for your trauma, if that makes sense. And I say that as gently and as lovingly as I can. Um, like if you're taking the steps that you need to like talk to a therapist or talk to a friend or like work through that trauma, like if you're just using that as like your, I don't know, trump card to excuse you like easily being triggered and stuff like that, that's not healthy. That's not okay. And if you know, as Heron and Code have been saying, like some people may not recognize their trauma and stuff like that. But if you know that like you have those issues, like for me, um, due to being in an abusive relationship, like I did not date anyone for years, partially because I was very focused on my journey with the Lord, but also because I knew like I like there's stuff I need to deal with. And I don't want to put I don't know, I don't want to put a guy in an uncomfortable position of him having to deal with my trauma with me when it was that severe. Like, yes, maybe later down the road, once, I don't know, I've healed more and I feel more okay, sharing that trauma and also feeling like I've healed enough from that trauma, then maybe I'll enter into a relationship. And then it's that person's decision of like, okay, like they still have this trauma, they're still dealing with it and stuff. But if I know that someone's like actively trying and not just like this is my excuse to lash out and stuff, then I'm more inclined to like, you know what? I want to walk this journey with you. You know, I want to
Yeah.
be there alongside you with this because I care about you and I see like you are trying. You're taking the steps you need to and like we can get through this. We can work through this and stuff. Whereas if someone's just blatantly like, "Oh yeah, I have this trauma," and that's just their excuse for acting out, then it's like that's not healthy for them and that's not healthy for me as a person, you know? I don't know if
Yeah.
that was a
No,
little
for
too harsh
sure.
or whatnot, but
No, no, no. I don't
yeah.
think it was at all. I was just letting you speak. So yeah, no, that's I think you had a lot of wisdom in doing like what you did where you're like you had enough self-awareness to say, "Okay, I'm in this situation." Self-aware enough to say, there might be situations where I might potentially be touchy on these things. And so, for my benefit and for somebody else's benefit, because I don't want to be unfair to them, I'm
Mhm.
just going to bow out for a little bit from the dating scene or whatever. And then you let God kind of heal you. And then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's the wise way of going about things because this is like, if you are in a relationship with somebody who is like this is very, very difficult to maintain a healthy relationship, in my opinion, which is why I would
Mhm.
consider it a red flag.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, because we live in such a victimization culture, it can be difficult to try and like say that because it's like, oh, so you have no sympathy for people's trauma. It's like it's not what I said.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think someone I read up here while you were speaking,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, Heron Club Dog said the issue is people who don't try to change.
Yes,
And
yep.
that's really I think the main issue. And then Maximum said I generally say red flag because trauma is real, but it's not an excuse to mistreat people. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
exactly.
basically it. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's I'm sure that it's not it's not even necessarily, I'm gonna say this with a grain of salt, but it's not even
Mhm.
necessarily your fault why you're responding this way because yeah, something very well could have
Mhm.
happened, but that's just not fair to do to somebody else
Yeah.
that is not related to it. It's not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so yeah, so as far as like a relationship goes, that's definitely something I'd be like, if this cannot be handled, nipped in the bud immediately, that's territory for saying, okay, this
Mhm.
probably won't work. So
Yeah. And it's just healthier for both parties to not enter into a relationship if someone's still easily triggered. Oh,
yeah.
you're good, Sel. You're good. Also, welcome in, hun. Happy belated birthday again. Hope you had an awesome stream. Also,
Yo, what's
Arthur,
up?
hello. How's it going, friend? But yeah, for me, it's the easily triggered.
Yeah.
It's just a sign that they're still not ready for a relationship. And again,
Yeah.
like you can still be friends with said person. Like if like you can
Yeah.
still be friends with them.
Hmm.
Just it's not I don't think it's healthy or safe for either person if they're still that easily triggered from trauma. There still needs to be some healing. There still needs to be some working through things and stuff. Otherwise, uh, also sometimes trauma victims can treat their significant other as a crutch, you know? But then there's
Yes,
that
that's
extra
so true.
pressure of that like on that other person, that extra responsibility of, oh, I need to take care of this person. Oh, you need to fix my problems. And it's like, but that's not their responsibility. Like, yes, as your partner in a sense, like we need to be encouraging and lifting each other up and walking through the trenches with one another. But there are certain battles that we need to take responsibility for, you know? Like our
Yeah.
partner can still walk with us through it, but that is kind of like on us to be walking through that. And then they just come alongside. It's not they're carrying us through this. Because that I don't know how else to explain it. It's just it needs to be of your own volition to want to work through that and heal through that, not thrown on your significant other and like, you need to help fix me because they can't
Right.
fix you. Nobody can fix you except God. And of course,
Right.
like therapy can help and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway.
I think the only scenario where this is something that has the potential of working through is if the person that is afflicted in this is self-aware enough to say, like when those moments happen, to be like, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be this way.
Hmm, hmm.
I'm actively trying, I just had a moment, I'm sorry, whatever. And then you see like where they're trying to progress towards that. But again,
Yeah.
that's it's like what Club Dog said. It's like, well, that's someone who actually is attempting to change.
Hmm.
But then you also have to look at it. Are they actually trying to change, or do they just use the "I'm sorry" as like a scapegoat
Yeah.
to keep doing the same thing too? So it's like, you really got I think it's a very individual by individual basis thing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
For me,
this
it's
one
the
sucks.
easel.
This one's like,
Yeah. For
it
me,
sucks to
it's
have
the
to talk about,
easily
but
for me, it's the easily triggered part. Like if like they
yeah,
can be triggered, like that's okay. Like
yeah,
because well, it's not okay, but it's okay in the sense of if they're like sorry, like that was just triggered trauma related. I'm working through it, but easily just feels like it's still a fresh wound,
yeah,
and so there needs to be a time period of maybe just take some time, go to therapy, get that counseling, talk to people, get that accountability, and work through that. I don't know. I'm very
yeah.
yeah, I'm very torn on this one. I would put this either like very bottom of beige or very top of red. Just because it is something that like needs to be addressed and that conversation needs to be had and be like,
Yeah.
are you taking the steps to work towards that healing process?
Yeah. For me, I would definitely put it in red, but I think it's a red that
Hmm.
has the potential to be addressed. It's
Yeah.
so yeah, it's like it would be like if we're talking about flags, it is a like it comes up in my mind as
Yes.
okay, that needs to be addressed or else,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I kind of envision it. Whereas like a beige flag is something like okay, that's maybe something we need to talk, but it's like it's not in it's like it's raising like a little caution, but the other one's like no, this
Hmm.
is a problem like
Yeah.
that we have to fix. So
Yeah. Very
um
much so. And it's one of those like it could move to a beige flag. Because again,
yeah,
like
yeah,
if they're taking those steps, and I guess the other thing is if they're taking those steps to work towards that, and if you as as not the person who's gone through trauma, if you are willing to walk with them through that as they're walking through their healing process, there is no expectation that you have to. Again, as a person, you get to decide what red flags or what beige flags or what green flags you are okay with and you are willing to commit to. So as you as a
right.
person, it's like, are you willing to walk with them through that? Because that is their trauma. That is a part of them that they are going to have to continue to journey through and stuff. So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Now, Neon brings up something that's kind of interesting. So what would you say for stuff like panic attacks or PTSD responses? Like, where would they fall under that type of thing?
Um
I'll let you speak first because I have feelings on
okay.
that. But
For me, um like it's also something that yeah, it could be easily triggered and it could be trauma related and stuff. Um and again, like it's something that it all boils down to I know it all boils down to motivation. Like are you just going like is this are you going to take on the victim mentality of like, "Oh, like I'm like I can't do anything about it. Like I'm just stuck with this." Or are you like, "Hey, like I am prone to panic attacks. Like these are the ways that I deal with it or I have PTSD and this is how like I've gone to therapists and doctors and this is how I'm working towards dealing with this. Like, are you dealing with the trauma? Is what it boils down to for me.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you're not dealing with it, then that's not healthy for you. And that's not healthy for me either. Like, it's not healthy for either party if you're not taking those steps to work with it. So
Yeah.
I,
It,
yeah,
go ahead and finish what you were saying.
I was just gonna say, so yeah, it's still technically like trauma related because yeah, like nobody asks for PTSD or panic attacks, and they use like PTSD stems from trauma. Panic attacks can stem from trauma. Sometimes it's I don't know full details on it, but sometimes it's just like it just that's just the way it is sometimes, unfortunately, or just or because of the situation or whatnot. Um, but yeah, it can be easily triggered. But again, it's like, are you motivated to work towards like dealing with those things and stuff, you know? So, because again, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like what Arthur said, we're all broken people. Like, nobody's perfect in the end. Also, welcome in, Rosie. Good to see you,
What's up,
hun.
Rosie?
Let's go.
Yeah, like for me when it comes to that, like this is it's so touchy because there's certain fine lines because I
Mm
I feel very deeply for the people that suffer through those because it's like I think too what where I have an issue because I'm a little bit more blunt with how I feel about things. So
hmm.
like some people say I have panic attacks and I have PTSD when they actually don't really have it.
mm,
They
yep.
just don't know how to handle their emotions and stuff like that.
Mm
That's where I have a little less sympathy, and that sounds kind of messed up to say it that way, but that's kind of just because I think some people like I feel like how you said it's the victimization culture. It's like almost everybody's got trauma, so to speak. But it's like, okay, but there are some people who legitimately have trauma. Like I'm thinking of like war veterans and stuff like that, right? They wake
hmm.
up in the middle
Mm
of the night screaming or almost attacking their spouse because they think they're
hmm.
back in
Yeah.
Nam again or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm
That is
hmm.
very different from like, oh, this I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that's an extreme circumstance. And there's like a part of me that's like, I mean, I don't think that that necessarily means that as the other person that is dealing with that person that means that you have to, I mean, unless you're married, that's different, but if
Mm
it's
hmm.
like if you're trying to get into a relationship with someone like that, that I don't think that that is a necessity for you to stay necessarily.
Mm
But
hmm.
at the same time, it's like I do feel for that other person that it's
Oh,
like
very
they
much
literally
so.
can't help that. So it really is like a sucky situation.
It
But
is.
I would still argue, even in those cases, assuming that all of it is legitimate, actual, like I can't help it, panic attack, PTSD, that type of a thing,
Mm hmm.
um, that still is under red flag though for me because
Yeah.
that's still indicative of if it's not ever able to get addressed and it's always there, then it's like that
Mm hmm.
could just cause issues for both of you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
it can be extremely sad, like I said, even for like the war veteran thing, because
Oh,
it's
for
like,
sure.
I yeah, it's rough. So
Yeah. So again, guys, like we said, like we've put it top of red because it's one of those things that can move to beige.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
it just depends on like I don't know, like whether or not they're willing to deal with their trauma, you know, or work towards dealing with their trauma, or if it's just I'm a victim and I'm going to sit here. It's like okay, well, then that's up to you whether to decide if you want to continue or towards that relationship or whatnot and stuff. So also
yeah,
Husky,
yeah.
welcome in. How's it going, hype?
Hey, what's up?
Yo. Rosie says here, yeah, you can't self-diagnose yourself with stuff. I know some people who will be like, oh, I have this just to get attention. So it sucks for those who really deal with it. Yeah, yeah, that's
And that's what I'm mainly talking about. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Because again, like I've met some people who are like, um, I don't know, just like, I have anxiety. And it's like, okay, great. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, how are you handling that, or how are you dealing with that and stuff? Whereas other people, it's like, I have anxiety, but I have these meds, or I'm going to therapy, and just like they're taking the steps to better themselves in a sense, you know. So as long as a
Yeah.
person's like taking those steps to take care of themselves, like we are all accountable for ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves, and not put that expectation of others to take care of ourselves.
And I feel like
What am
the
I look? I feel
usual
like I worded that weird, but
no, I still got what you meant
okay.
because it's like I feel like the usual differentiation between someone who really does struggle versus someone who doesn't is the
Yeah.
person who struggles usually very much doesn't want to anymore. And
Oh,
they're
yes.
very actively
Yeah.
like I don't even think that they're not gonna be the person that's saying like, "Oh yeah, I have," because for them it's like oftentimes probably embarrassing because it's like it's something
Yeah.
they can't control, it's something they can't help. Where
Mhm.
the faking victim person is like, "Oh yeah, they collect them like Pokemon." And it's like, it's like, "Oh yeah, I have anxiety and this and that." And it's like, "No, you're just using those as an excuse so that you can not be a nice person or whatever." You know what
And
I'm
not take
saying?
accountability for themselves, yeah.
Or yeah, exactly that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
So
that's kind of usually what I feel like is the difference. It's the people who really struggle that are just like they don't even want to typically address it. Like they don't even want to like think about it because it's like
mhm.
I don't like this element of myself and I'm trying to fix it and I don't know how or
Mhm.
whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yep. Very much so. I agree with that.
that's what I would usually argue. It's not always the case, but
Well, that's fair. That's fair. Rosie says, as someone who has dealt with anxiety her whole life, I work every day to make sure it doesn't majorly affect my relationships and to be more Christ like. Yeah, exactly. As soon as, I don't know, as soon as people write things off like, oh, I can't, I don't know, I can't, f- I don't know. As soon as people start making excuses for being uh mean or unkind or unchrist-like person for thing, it's like, okay, well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Others will say they have the same anxiety to get out of things, unfortunately. Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like, again, like what Hood said, I gotta catch them all.
yeah, it's like sometimes it really feels that way. I mean, that's kind of
uh,
like a silly way of putting it, but it just it's like it's become a common currency in our
mm-hmm.
culture where it's like if I have more things that I'm dealing with, then that makes me, like where you can't say stuff about me because blank, and
Yeah.
it's like that you don't get to use that. And so it's like where because I have like a very like I'm very like a switch one way or the other. I have where I have deep sympathy and empathy for people who really like are struggling through things and but
Mm-hmm.
it's like but at the moment that I feel like you are now starting to use that to manipulate me, that's when I'm
Oh,
like,
yep.
okay, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I'm like, no, you don't get to do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's how it kind of works for me usually. And so it's because I feel so deeply, I'm like, I'm not gonna take emotional manipulation like that very well
Mm-hmm.
because I naturally am thinking of that other person, for
Mm-hmm.
their best interest. So,
Oh,
but
very much so. Yeah. And yeah, like Rosie said, like again, at the end of the day, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect, but
yeah, yep,
we still need to be taking those steps towards trying to better ourselves and, just be a better person. Again, we're not going to be perfect, but as long as that's our goal, like again, like God calls us to be perfect. Not that he thinks we're ever going to hit that goal on this side of eternity, but because he calls us to challenge ourselves, to be better, to be more like him and stuff.
yeah.
So,
And I believe you
yeah.
can do that even on this side of glory, so to speak,
Yeah.
because of the fact that it says that you can have a mind of like a mind like Christ. You, when you become saved, you literally are made like a new creation, according to Paul. Like you're like a
Mhm,
new thing. You're
mhm,
not the old thing anymore. So I think those things can actually happen. Like I don't think. I guess the best way to say this, I don't think that Jesus would ever have told you to do something that you could never do, that you could
mhm.
never actually achieve. So if he
Yeah,
says, in essence, to be perfect like I am perfect, I think you can head towards that. You just need him to do it. You know what I'm saying? So,
exactly. Yep.
but
Preach it, brother. And yeah,
so that was a dark one, but
uh, well, again, like these are good. These are good to be like,
they are
these are the
good. Yeah.
good, deep questions to be like hashing out and discussing and stuff, Because I feel like we don't talk about these things enough. And especially
No.
in our society, it's like, oh, you have trauma? Oh, you get a free pass. It's like, okay, well, no, let's dig deeper into this. Let's talk about this. Cause yes, there's sympathy, but also we're still accountable to ourselves and all that jazz and stuff. But yeah, like Sel and
Yeah.
Rose, you're saying like those who actually like have that trauma or have that struggle or whatever, like yeah, like they don't want to stay there. They want to get better.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things will stick with us to the end of our days on this side of eternity. And that's okay. Like as long as we're still striving to it's like I want to overcome this. I want to get better and stuff like, hey, that's good. That's healthy. That's an important mindset to be having. So, yeah.
Right.
And welcome back, Grace.
Yo, what's
Um,
up,
yeah, let's go.
Zion?
I dropped into a very yes. Sorry, Grace. It's very
Yeah.
we be dropping it like it's hot today.
Yeah. This particular one was needed some discussion. So
mm-hmm. I like that, Grace. I like that. It's an explanation, not an excuse.
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
everyone's
Well
spitting
summed
fire
up.
today. Whew, let's go. All right. Hopefully this one's a little more chill.